entertaining talking sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, of course, we're going to recap the game between the Tampa Bay Bucs and the New York Giants as the Giants drop another one. They dropped to 1-7 now as we're 8 weeks into the season. And, of course, going into the game, I think everybody thought the New York Giants were going to lose. If you looked at all the experts going into the game, they had the New York Giants losing like 45-10. I didn't see any of them within like 20 points. There was like 8 of them on the ESPN screen. And I always thought it was going to be closer than that. Quite frankly, I thought they'd lose within a touchdown because the New York Giants have played teams tough all year. And the New York Giants have improved week in and week out. But it's the same moral of the story. And we're going to get into the reasoning as to why they lost. But it's the same story. Good teams find ways to win. Bad teams find ways to lose. And the New York Giants are definitely a better football team. Nobody can deny it. They're getting better week in and week out. But they're not winning. And there's a game, like I said, going in, you shouldn't have expected to win. But it's a game that, as it, unfolded, it was a game that you felt like we had to win. Based off the way that we played in the first half, based off the way that the team fought, and I'll get into the game plan, I'll get into Jason Garrett, I'll get into everything else, but I was proud of the effort from the overall team in this game. I know everybody's going to want to rag on Daniel Jones, and we're going to get into Daniel Jones, believe me, because Daniel Jones is the sole reason why the New York Giants lost this game. Last week, the villain was Evan Ingram, and that's what happens with bad football teams. There's always going to be somebody who finds a way to lose a game, but when it's your quarterback, and when he's struggling, and when he has the opportunity to close out this football game and he doesn't do it, the game's going to fall on his shoulders. And some of the mistakes, maybe you could point to that the wide receivers didn't run great routes, but it gets tiring after a while to not put any of the blame on Daniel Jones from certain fans. I am not going to be a Daniel Jones apologist. And everybody knows when the New York Giants drafted Daniel Jones, I wasn't on board with it. I was not happy with the pick. I think most of you guys probably saw my reaction. But I'm a New York Giant fan, and I try to be as fair as I possibly can to every player on this team. And I've given Daniel Jones a long leash, and I'm going to continue to give him a leash throughout the year, okay? But his leash is getting less and less and less because it is no longer to the point now where you can talk new scheme. We're 8 games into the season, and the mistakes that he's making are not scheme-driven, okay? And we'll get into the mistakes in this game. But the New York Giants took on the Tampa Bay Bucs in this game, in a game in which they were 13-point underdogs, and they found a way to lose. And much like a lot of the games, the Bucs started out with the ball. They got off to a great start. They moved the ball at will against the New York Giants, something that happens week in and week out. But the Giants were able to hold them to a 3-point field goal. And the third down defense, matter of fact, I want to pull up the stats because I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the third down defense continues to do the job for the New York Giants, something that we've struggled in all year. And the time of possession was about dead even. It was 29-50 to 30-10. And the third down defense, once again, the Giants got much better. The Bucs in this game were only 4 for 12. The Giants only converted on 4 for 11. This was a very good defense coming in. The New York Giants were able to establish some sort of ground game, and the defense played their asses off. Okay, let's start there. The secondary throughout this game was phenomenal. Some of the plays that James Bradbury was able to come up with, Isaac Yiadom was able to come up with their back to the ball, their ability to read the wide receiver's hands. They did a hell of a job of keeping the New York Giants in this football game. The defense played lights out. I know they gave up a touchdown during the end, but the defense was the primary reason we were in this game. That and the offensive line and the ability to establish some kind of ground game against a very good run defense in the Tampa Bay Bucs. And this offensive line continues to get better week in and week out. Jason Garrett, I hear a lot of Giants fans complaining about Jason Garrett. I don't see it. I'm not putting the blame on Jason Garrett. I haven't put the blame on Jason Garrett for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Again, I thought Jason Garrett called a good football game. New York Giants didn't execute. Came out, they threw the ball down the field. They dropped some balls. They got creative with the pass from Golden Tate on the other side. I thought he was innovative. I thought the New York Giants took shots down the field when they needed to. I'm not putting this on Jason Garrett. I think Jason Garrett had a good game plan, and I actually thought the offense looked very good at points in time throughout this game. They moved the ball, but again, costly turnovers. Of course, Daniel Jones made the great throw to Dion Lewis. It was his second best throw of the game, in which he dropped it in the bucket. It was a great catch by Lewis. Wayne Gallman, I want to give that guy a shout out. It was the second straight week where this guy ran his butt off. And maybe the stats may not indicate it. He averaged just under, 4 yards a carry. As a team, we averaged 4.2 or 4.1. He was running hard. He was finishing those carries. I thought Wayne Gallman played great. Alfred Morris even played pretty well. The running game was there. The offensive line was phenomenal. Andrew Thomas. How about Andrew Thomas? Let's talk about him since he's been the villain by a lot of New York Giants fans, calling him a bust the last few weeks. Andrew Thomas played great. Everybody said going into the game that Jason Pierre-Paul is going to rip his head off. He's going to get 10 sacks. He got 1 sack, and that sack wasn't even on Andrew Thomas. The pocket collapsed from the interior part of the offensive line. Thomas had to step up and try to make a play, and he bounced off Thomas and got a sack. So that wasn't even on Thomas. Didn't call Thomas's name once the entire game. Andrew Thomas played great. Shane Lemieux, having to step in because Will Hernandez got the virus, played his butt off. The offensive line as a whole was phenomenal. Okay, now you want to point to Zeitler. Zeitler had 2 costly penalties in this game. One of them I thought was actually on Lemieux, but they called it on Zeitler. I don't get to hear the broadcast while I'm calling the game. But I thought that the offensive line as a whole, at least a B+. At least. They played great. The defense as a whole played great. I'm not putting any part of this loss on either part of them or Jason Garrett. They went into the half up 8 points against a great football team in the Tampa Bay Bucs. Let's not forget the Tampa Bay Bucs posted 38 on the Green Bay Packers. They won 38-10. They posted over 40 on the Raiders, who have been a very good team the last 2 weeks. This is a great offense. This is a team with a great defense. And the New York Giants had an 8-point lead at the half with the ball. Then Daniel Jones did what he does a lot of the times. He had a costly turnover, and a turnover you can't make. Some people in the stream didn't put it on him. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. The second one, 1,000% on Daniel Jones. It was an awful decision, the second one. But that first interception, it shifted everything. But again, the New York Giants were able to hold him to a field goal and keep him within the game. But then the New York Giants couldn't get any drives going. And then Jones again had the other costly interception where it was just an inexcusable decision by Daniel Jones to throw that football. I was talking to Bad Dog after our show this week on his channel, and I said, Daniel Jones is not Eli Manning, and he needs to realize he's not Eli Manning. I talked about that going into the year, that I thought Daniel Jones at times needed to dial it back a bit. Even though I liked that he was aggressive, that he took shots, that he tried to make plays, he needed a little bit more Alex Smith to his game because he does not have the natural arm talent, at least in my opinion, and maybe some people's opinions differ, to a guy like Eli Manning. He doesn't have that. And on that play, at least in my opinion, you got to throw that ball away, or you need to take the sack. Throw it in the dirt, whatever it is. You're not capable of making that throw, at least in my opinion. And he threw an interception. It was a horrible, horrible decision on Daniel Jones' part. And that's not to say he can't be a good quarterback. It's just to say he doesn't have A+ arm strength. But that was a horrible decision. And in the end, that's why we lost the football game. Of course, the New York Giants had that great drive in which Darius Slayton made a phenomenal play on the 4th and 5. He was able to spin back, get the first down, and Jones was great on that drive. He's had a couple. It seems like he has one great drive every game, sometimes 2. And last week was his best game of the year, but he had a great drive to get the Giants back into the game. After he struggled the entire second half. And he threw the touchdown to Golden Tate, which was his best throw of the game, and a great throw by Golden Tate. And then they set up for the 2-point conversion. Here's the first thing I'm thinking after the game. One, the New York Giants came out with some kind of odd formation. I think it was a 3 tight end set. They motioned both Toyolo and I believe Caden Smith to the right side. And then they called a timeout, right? The defense, Tampa Bay called a timeout because they wanted to see what the Giants were going to come out with. After they called the timeout and Tampa got to see what they were coming out with, the Giants still came out with the same exact play. They motioned both of them. In addition to that, they motioned Gallman. So to me, that's a little bit of a head-scratcher. Tampa Bay already got to see what you were doing. You still came out with the same play. On the play, Jones may have thrown it a little bit late. I'd have to watch the tape to say definitively that Jones threw it too late. I'm not 100% sure on that. Bad Dog said that. People in the chat said that. I'd have to look back at it. But the flag, and I'm not blaming this game on the referees. Like I said, I'm blaming this game on Daniel Jones. But I don't know how in the world you could pick up that flag there. How do you pick up the flag there on a pass interference call in which the guy had his back to the quarterback and he made contact? You threw the flag. How do you pick it up? And then they pick it up. The Giants would have had the 1, and who knows what would have happened on the 2-point conversion, and who knows what would have happened if we ended up in overtime. At the end of the day, it's going to be the same thing I say every week because it's the truth. The New York Giants are a much better team than their record indicates. They're 1-7. They're a bad team because they find ways to lose games, but they're in these games. They're fighting for their head coach. And I had people in the chat telling me, fire Joe Judge. Fire Joe Judge? Fire Joe Judge? This team had every right, not right, but every excuse in the book to come out deflated this week. After they gave up an 11-point lead against the Philadelphia Eagles and were going up against a team that just obliterated two of the better teams in the league, they came in as a 13-point favorite. The Giants fought tooth and nail throughout the entirety of this game. That, to me, speaks volumes of the head coach. Bottom line is Joe Judge doesn't have a ton of talent. Bottom line is he's going up against some of the best teams the league has to offer. And the bottom line is this team gives you everything they have every week. Joe Judge, to me, is doing a good job. He just doesn't have a good team. I go back and I look to back to the Miami Dolphins last year. I've talked about this. Flores started 0-7. Right now, people are talking about Flores for Coach of the Year. They ended up winning 5 games down the stretch, and I don't know if the Giants are going to do that because they play a very tough schedule. But the team is fighting for Joe Judge. I'm encouraged by the effort this team put forward tonight. I'm not happy with the result, and I'm not happy with the way that Daniel Jones played. And I know people are going to start talking about the quarterback, and rightfully so. When you lose games like that, it has to fall on your shoulder. You're the quarterback of the football team, and he continues to make costly mistakes in big spots. And I'm still trying to be fair. Everybody knows, if you saw my draft reaction, I was not the biggest Daniel Jones supporter when we brought him in. Okay, and I don't want to be right. I want to be as wrong as anybody else. But unfortunately, right now, it's leaning towards that I'm probably going to be right. And I don't want to be right. I hope we're all wrong. I hope he goes out there and he becomes the greatest franchise quarterback in the history of this franchise. And he's still got 8 games to improve, but it's not looking good right now. We'll see how he bounces back. But to me, this game was squarely on Daniel Jones. And this week, they couldn't bail him out. The Washington game, he threw the costly interception where people said maybe he was trying to throw it out of bounds. Whatever it may be, this game falls on Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones cannot make mistakes like that in big spots. And I know that Eli Manning had made these mistakes as well. And I'm going to stick with Jones. I'm not going to tell you we're definitely moving on. We got 8 games. He's got to get a lot better. But, through 8 games, I haven't seen much. Let's hope it gets better, guys. We got 3 winnable games coming up against Washington, against the Eagles, and we've got the Bengals. 3 games we should win based on the way we've played. We're better than those teams if we don't turn the football over. We'll see. Hopefully the New York Giants grow up, but right now, we have the number 2 pick. And we're 1-7. And you are what your record says. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.